a day to go before this seemingly endless election cycle comes to an end. On today's program, we'll talk to outgoing 2nd District Congressman, Missouri Congressman Todd Akin, the Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate. He's a politician who has made more than his share of headlines in recent months. We'll also meet Jason Plummer, another Republican. He wants to claim Illinois' 12th District congressional seat on Election Day. Todd Akin and Jason Plummer following the news here on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
From NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The presidential candidates will each try to gain the edge on foreign policy in their third debate tonight in Boca Raton, Florida. Janet Brown, executive director for the Commission on Presidential Debates, says there will be new rules to encourage a full discussion of ideas.
The format is brand new. We have tried to do what the American public says they want, which is to take away the minute timing of these debates and actually give extended periods of time for the candidates to discuss the issues.
The debate at Lynn University will be moderated by CBS's Bob Sheeper. President Obama's campaign continues to lead former Governor Mitt Romney in small donors. NPR's S.V. Date reports the latest Federal Election Commission filings show a 3-to-1 advantage for Mr. Obama in contributions under $200.
Mr. Obama's fundraising operation took in $61 million last month from people who have not reached that $200 threshold. Romney raised just over one-third of that. That gap contributed to the president's $36 million cash-on-hand advantage over Romney heading into this month. In contrast, the Republican Party had $81 million more in the bank than the Democratic Party. But money in a candidate's account can be used for all campaign purposes, including television ads, while party money can only help a candidate in prescribed ways, with strict limits on coordinated TV advertising. S.V. Date, NPR News.
Lance Armstrong's cycling fame comes to an end today, at least as far as the International Cycling Union is concerned. It has stripped the athlete of his 7 Tour de France titles and is banning Armstrong from competition for life for his involvement in doping. It's a claim Armstrong strongly denies. Native American activist and author Russell Means died this morning at age 72 on the Pine Ridge Reservation of South Dakota. Means starred in a number of Hollywood films, including The Last of the Mohicans. South Dakota Public Broadcasting's Charles Michael Ray also remembers Means as a member of the American Indian movement and champion of indigenous rights.
Russell Means led the 1973 armed occupation of the town of Wounded Knee that captured the national spotlight. Means saw the event as instrumental in sparking other indigenous uprisings across the Western Hemisphere.
It was Wounded Knee that sparked all of this happening. My whole purpose is to leave a legacy for the younger people. And in fact, some of that legacy is paying off already.
Means maintained his commitment to activism throughout his Hollywood career. In 2007, he declared independence from the United States and the formation of a new country called the Republic of Lakota. He died surrounded by his family on the Pine Ridge Reservation after a battle with cancer. For NPR News, I'm Charles Michael Ray in Rapid City, South Dakota.
At last check on Wall Street, the Dow is down 24 points at 13,320. NASDAQ up 4 points. This is NPR News. An Italian court has convicted 7 scientists and other experts in connection with the deaths of more than 300 people in the 2009 earthquake. They were charged with manslaughter for failing to give residents enough warning about the quake in central Italy. The defense and many international seismologists argue that it's impossible to predict when a potentially deadly earthquake will strike. The number of cases of workplace harassment and discrimination is increasing on Capitol Hill. NPR's Caitlin Dickerson explains that a new report indicates nearly 200 incidents were reported just last year.
The Congressional Office of Compliance says cases of workplace harassment and discrimination have increased threefold since 2007. Last year, the majority of cases were based on race, followed by sex, disability, and age. The report includes harassment allegations against a variety of Capitol Hill employees, including those who work in House and Senate offices and the Capitol Police. The report also found cases of retaliation, intimidation, and reprisal at the Capitol have increased since 2007. Nearly $500,000 taxpayer dollars were spent to settle such cases last year. Since the Office of Compliance is required by law to keep the details of alleged harassment anonymous, there's no way of confirming if any elected officials were implicated in the report. Caitlin Dickerson, NPR News, Washington.
Online shoppers could hand FedEx its best holiday present yet. The delivery company expects to ship about 280 million packages between Thanksgiving and Christmas, reflecting a 13% jump from a year ago. Its rival, UPS, has not yet released its holiday forecast. I'm Lakshmi Singh, NPR News in Washington.
Support for NPR comes from Delta Airlines, featuring flatbed seats with direct aisle access on select international routes. Tickets available at delta.com. Delta, keep climbing.
At 11:06, here's the latest forecast for the St. Louis Public Radio listening area. Still about a 20% chance of an isolated shower or thunderstorm for the next couple of hours or so. Then mostly sunny, a high of 83 degrees, a 40% rain chance tonight, about 30% tomorrow, but clearing Tuesday night. And Wednesday looks spectacular, sunny and 85. Current conditions, humidity 78%, winds from the south gusting to 22 miles an hour, scattered light rain, and 66 degrees in St. Louis.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Don Marsh. One politician is giving up his congressional seat and another who wants to win one. That's where we're going on today's program. Missouri's 2nd District Congressman Todd Aiken's rhetoric has gotten him a lot of criticism this campaign. We'll be talking with him about that just a little bit later in the program. But first, when Illinois Democratic Congressman Jerry Costello decided to end his nearly quarter-century in Congress, 3 candidates emerged to succeed him. The Green Party's Paula Bradshaw, who was on this program last week, Democrat Bill Enyart, and Republican businessman Jason Plummer. Candidate Plummer joins us now to talk about the race and his campaign. Jason, so nice to have you with us.
Don, thanks for having me.
How are you holding up?
Things are going well. Things are going well. A couple weeks to go.
2 weeks and then 1 day to go.
Right.
I think one question that people might ask of you, Jason, is that you've run for office before, for lieutenant governor, and you're considered, I guess, well-to-do, a successful businessman with a successful family company. What motivates someone like you to get into politics?
Well, I think if you look at the background in business, also in the military, I'm an intelligence officer in the Navy Reserves. I think folks in the military, I think folks in business pay a lot of attention to public policy. It has a big impact on what they do. And, I grew up in a situation where my parents were both high school teachers, and my parents decided they wanted to start a lumberyard and try that, and they did. Been very blessed, and we've grown that, employ a lot of people, do a lot of things. And what we see right now in Southern Illinois is an environment where it's very difficult for people to do things like that. It's very difficult for people that want to take a risk or go out there and kind of pursue their dreams. It's hard to do. We've got double-digit unemployment, but we're tremendously blessed with resources. We've got great people, great geographic location, and we're not struggling because of a lack of talent. We're not struggling because of a lack of natural resources. We're struggling because of bad public policy, and we see that in our business. I see that in my business. If we're going to change things, if we're going to provide opportunity for people in Southern Illinois, we need the type of policy that will provide them an opportunity to grow economically, to take care of their families, and to kind of be able to pursue those dreams.
Well, what specifically is the bad public policy that you're referring to?
Well, this administration, if you look at what's happening nationally, I think a lot of people can complain about what's going on, but if you look at, for instance, a lot of the regulatory actions, they've landed especially heavily on the industries that really drive Southern Illinois. So, for example, we've gone from 37 operating coal mines in my congressional district not that long ago to less than 10 today. And when you look at a household income in my district of about $42,000, the average Southern Illinois coal miner makes between $65,000 and $70,000. That's a phenomenal quality of life. And when those jobs disappear, when those mines close down, those people are out of work. The ancillary businesses that develop around the coal mines, the trucking companies, and so on and so forth, they disappear, and our communities shrink. So if you look at what this administration has done, especially in terms of energy policy, but also in terms of the manufacturing base and the trucking base that drives Southern Illinois, it's had a really negative impact, and we need to get it turned around.
You're talking about national policy, obviously.
Absolutely.
Primarily. Your district is still primarily fairly blue, Democratic.
Correct.
The state is fairly blue, Democratic. You've run for office before, and you were telling me before we went on the air that you won 100 counties and still lost the election.
Right.
What are your prospects this time, do you think? Could they be any better than they were last time?
Absolutely, we've got a great shot, you know, and Illinois is considered a blue state, but if you really break it down and look at it, it's kind of I'd say it's a purple state. You know, before Rod Blagojevich was elected, the Republicans controlled the governor's mansion in Illinois for 28 straight years. Governor Romney is doing extremely well outside of the Chicago area. He's doing well in my congressional district, for example. So we've got 12 counties, but they're culturally conservative. You know, for 72 years we've only had 2 congressmen, and both those congressmen were elected because they ran as very, very, very conservative Democrats. And now that the seat is an open seat, when people see the national policy, the direction the Democrat Party is going, they don't recognize that as the old Democrat Party that they're used to. And so Republicans have a great opportunity. I think we're going to see a lot of wins in Illinois this cycle.
You know, a lot of political observers have said that this may be the most contentious race in the country, or certainly one of the most, that it's downright nasty. Your thoughts about that type of campaign?
Well, it's really unfortunate, you know. I agree with what they're saying. When you have folks that don't really have a record to run on, when you have folks that don't want to run on the record that their policies support, they're going to attack. And if you watch our TV, you'll see that we talk a lot about proper public policy. We talk about positive solutions for the problems people are facing. You know, I gave you a jobs plan here that talks about not just things that came from me, but things we hear from people all across the 12th Congressional District. And people want answers, they don't want attacks. And we try to do everything we can to stay positive and talk about solutions. The other side spends a tremendous amount of money on the attack, and you know, I think at the end of the day that will benefit us, because people don't want to see politicians trashing each other. They want to see politicians talking about how they're going to fix the problems that really are keeping those folks from reaching the dreams that they want to achieve. They really want to see people talk about solutions for very specific policy proposals that exist out there in Washington, and when all people do is attack, it doesn't provide solutions.
Well, if you think it's bad here, imagine what it's going to be like in Washington. I mean, that's the atmosphere there is almost toxic.
It's very partisan, and that gridlock's unfortunate because it keeps a lot of things from getting done that we need to see accomplished. You know, if you look at Washington, though, I tell people all the time. I mean, there's a variety of reasons why it's as partisan as it is. I think one thing that people overlook is the way we redraw the maps. So in 2010. You know, Republicans picked up a U.S. Senate seat in Illinois. They went after 4 congressional seats. They won 5. They had huge gains, and the Democrats were in control of things in Springfield. They redrew the map and really kind of took the voice of the voter away and kind of the way they gerrymandered everything. What we see, though, across this country, what we see in Illinois, very, very Republican districts and very, very Democratic districts. And when people go to Washington from a district that's 60 or 65 or 70% Republican or Democrat, they're going to vote their district. They're going to represent their constituents, and they're either way to the left or way to the right. This district's a very middle-of-the-road district, the one I'm running for. So we need mainstream candidates, people that can kind of work with folks from both parties to be able to cut through that gridlock. And if we don't send people from districts like this one to Washington to represent kind of some common sense solutions and kind of a voice of a middle-of-the-road district, we're going to struggle to get anything accomplished, and that's why I think this race is very important.
Conventional wisdom at the moment is saying that we're going to go over that fiscal cliff just after the first of the year, which means that if you are elected to Congress, you're going to have to be dealing with that. So we're going to be talking about huge cuts in all parts of our budget. How are you prepared to deal with that? Where do you want to go with this?
Well, I think that, you know, folks run for office, they get elected to deal with really tough problems, and there are some serious problems that we're facing in Washington, especially in terms of the fiscal issues, and the direction we're going right now has really motivated me to get into this race, because I just don't believe in a society where government can spend so much more, government can really have a lack of accountability like we see right now, and continue to just go back to the taxpayer, continue to go back to the voter for more and more and more, when you don't see any restraint at the government level. In order to solve the fiscal crisis we're facing right now, we need to see spending cuts, but we also need to see increased revenue. And that's where the real philosophical debate takes place, is how do you increase revenue in Washington? Well, you know, I come from a mindset that you increase revenue to Washington by growing the economy, by getting more people participating in the economy and driving those tax revenues up. The other side, I would say, they believe in higher tax rates and shrinking the economy, and the math just doesn't work. History proves it that way. You know, I was in a debate a couple of weeks ago. My one opponent said that, you know, fiscally things were great in the 50s. After World War II, we had some debt and everything. We solved it because we had 90% tax rates. Well, 90% tax rates don't make any sense. That's how we're going to crush this economy.
So you're basically in line with Mitt Romney on this issue.
I am.
Right. Okay, I want to go to the phones right away because what we've been talking about most recently plays right into what Peggy from Millstadt would like to get into this conversation with. So Peggy, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. And Jason, to me, politics must include compromise. One source of the lack of compromise in the past seems to be the Americans for Tax Reform pledge. Have you signed that pledge, and why or why not?
Yeah, there is a lack of compromise in Washington right now, and that's a real problem that we have right now. We need to make sure that we send people out there that don't support one party or support one policy proposal just because of the party that supports it. I'm really the only candidate in this race that has said, hey, you know what, here's some good policies from the Democrats as a Republican, and here's some bad policies from Republicans. The Farm Bill is a perfect example of something that's really hurting the lack of a Farm Bill is really hurting the 12th Congressional District, and I supported a discharge petition in kind of the face of the Republican leadership on that problem. So when it comes to the ATR, the group you were referring to, they basically asked candidates out there to support a policy position that would cause no net increase in taxes on the American people. And I definitely think that we need to be in a position where we don't raise taxes on anybody. I don't care who they are. I'm fine with changing the tax code, but we cannot have a net increase in taxes. We need to make sure that we grow the economy, and if we raise rates on anybody, we're taking people out of participating in the economy, and that's a real problem. So what I've laid out, it's actually in the jobs proposal that I've given Don. It's available on our website, and we've talked a lot in the media about it, is bringing down rates for businesses, bringing down rates for people, simplifying the tax code, getting rid of loopholes and deductions that people can take advantage of, and hopefully that causes a net decrease in tax rates for everybody. That's what studies show it would do, but it would also grow the economy, get more people back to work, get more people starting businesses, participating in the economy, getting paychecks or distributing paychecks, and then of course paying taxes.
We have a tweet here I'd like you to respond to, and so with the writer, obviously. It reads, given his parents were high school teachers, does Mr. Plummer believe teacher funding should be cut and class size increased?
No, I don't. And, that's a real problem that we have in Illinois right now is the current governor who has provided absolutely no leadership, someone that, I campaigned against. And when I campaigned, I said that if we continue down the path we're in right now under Governor Quinn and his allies, education was going to get slashed. Those state workers who work very hard in the classroom, in prisons and everywhere else, we're going to see their pensions attacked by the current leadership. We're going to see social service providers and nonprofits see their funding slashed. And right now across the state of Illinois, we see social service providers getting slashed. We see education getting slashed. We see healthcare getting slashed. And we see no policy leadership, no budget leadership from the Democrats in charge. That's a real problem. We need to restore our funding. We need to make sure that our kids go into classrooms that are well prepared and functional, and that the teachers are there to make sure our kids are ready to go out into the world when they graduate and be productive citizens. But the lack of leadership, the poor budgetary process we see in Illinois right now is really harming the people who are most in need of those things right now.
But many members of your party in Washington are saying, for instance, that the Department of Education should just be eliminated.
Well, I don't know. I haven't heard anyone from the party just say it should be eliminated. I do know that myself and probably a lot of other people that I know believe that when it comes to education, the closer you can get to a problem, the closer you can be to an area, the more likely you're going to feel the impact of things, the more likely you're going to know the solutions for things. So I think education should be kept as local as possible. So if there's federal money, for example, that money should go to the state, and then the state should disperse it down to the local level so that communities and school districts can really take care of their children. What we see right now is we see one-size-fits-all bureaucratic answers from Washington. And look, we live in a diverse nation. Illinois is a diverse state. The 12th Congressional District is a diverse congressional district. And these one-size-fits-all federal answers for everything isn't how it should work. What we need to see is education funding, education leadership, education policy should be kept as local as possible.
Another tweet here. How much of the coal mining changes in Illinois have been because of exhausting the mines versus policy?
None of it's been because of exhausting the mines. Right now, between Illinois 15 and Illinois 12, I'm in 12, John Shimkus is in 15, there's more BTUs in coal than there is BTUs in Saudi Arabia's oil. We have a tremendous amount of coal reserves in southern Illinois. We haven't even hit the tip of the iceberg in terms of the coal that exists in southern Illinois. We need to make sure we access that, put people back to work, but also bring down the energy costs of families all over the United States.
You have mentioned it, that you brought this brochure to me, which was handed to me just as we were going on the air, your jobs plan.
Yes.
And you indicated the economy, obviously in your district and most of Illinois, is something that needs to be fixed. What specifically do you point to create more jobs in your district?
Well, so we hear about the national unemployment rate all the time. Illinois' unemployment rate hovering at about 9%. The unemployment rate in this congressional district is 10.5%. So it's really bad in Illinois 12. It's something that we have to do. In order to get people back to work, in order to get things going, there's quite a few things we need to do. Right off the top, three things that I'm a big fan of is we need to make sure that our infrastructure is at the level it should be right now. We're having problems with our locks and dams. We're having problems with our roads. That's inhibiting our farmers. It's inhibiting the few coal mines we have left and other manufacturers, for example, from getting their products out of the global marketplace. So we need to make sure our infrastructure is top tier. We need to make sure that the oil and gas folks, the coal mines can be opened up and those resources can be utilized. There's a real problem right now because obviously, as we've discussed, that's not happening. If we put those coal miners back to work, if we open up more mines, that's a tremendous amount of money going into southern Illinois. Then, of course, we need to look at things that are kind of holding us back from a broader perspective. Like I said, the Farm Bill earlier. This Farm Bill is causing headaches for farmers all over southern Illinois. And I haven't met a single farmer that's asked for a bailout. In fact, when I go out there and I meet with small businessmen, I meet with doctors, farmers, coal miners, teachers, you name it, people always use the word certainty. People are looking for certainty. And right now, when it comes to regulatory policy, when it comes to tax policy, there is no certainty out there. So in our jobs plan, we've articulated a path for real tax reform that makes a flatter, more simple, more easily to understand tax code, which I think would incentivize people to invest, to make capital investments, to work, to really drive the economy. We need regulatory reform. As I talked about, just the EPA itself, but the Department of Agriculture. There are more employees at the Department of Agriculture than there are farmers in the United States of America. We've got a Department of Labor that's trying to regulate whether or not 15 or 16-year-old kids in southern Illinois can work on a family farm. Well, I would argue, too, southern Illinois was built by 15 and 16-year-old kids working on their family farm. So it's not that we're against regulation, but we need common sense regulations, and this administration's gone way overboard.
Where would the money come from with regard to infrastructure improvements, for instance?
Well, if you grow the economy, if you prioritize your spending, that's where the money would come from. I always tell people all the time, you have to look at what the core functions of government are. I think the number one core function of government is national security. We're very blessed across the river to have Scott Air Force Base, which is great for the local economy, but people underestimate the huge role Scott Air Force Base plays in national security. So we have to look at those core functions. So you've got national security. I would argue number two is infrastructure spending. Road, rail networks, rivers, are they up to par? So we need to make sure that the massive amounts of money we're spending is being spent appropriately, efficiently, effectively. There's a return on the investment. And right now, that's not happening.
But you certainly would accept federal funds for these projects like these.
Well, if they make sense, no one's looking to waste money. I've written papers on wasting federal money all the time. No one's looking for a bridge to nowhere. Or, I remember the port project in Iowa. They made an indoor rainforest in Iowa with federal money. Nobody's looking to do that. We just want to make sure the roads aren't crumbling. We want to make sure that the locks and dams can operate 24/7, which we're concerned they won't be able to, so on and so forth.
Back to the phones. I'd like to bring in Bob calling from Millstadt. Bob, go ahead. You're on the air.
Thank you for taking my call. This is not my question, but he was asked a question earlier about whether he signed the pledge put out by Grover Norquist, and he gave a very long response, but he didn't say yes or no. I would like him to just say yes or no on that question. But my real question is about the coal industry. He talks about opening more coal mines. The reason that the coal mines are going down is because natural gas is going up. Natural gas is cheaper, cleaner, and if he supports a free market, then naturally coal is going to decrease. It has nothing to do with the policy of anybody. It has to do with the free market.
Well, that's just, with all due respect to Bob, you're apparently popular in Millstadt, Don. A lot of calls for no
are.
But no, I mean, that's just not the case. I mean, over the last 20 years, we've gone from 37 mines to less than 10, and obviously natural gas hasn't been low for the last 20 years. We're actually very blessed right now to have the very low natural gas prices, because the assault that the coal industry is under right now is of course causing us huge headaches. And if natural gas prices weren't low, energy prices would be going through the roof right now. Natural gas prices are very cyclical. We all know that, and we're blessed tremendously right now to be able to utilize the low natural gas prices, and that's causing headaches for the coal industry. But the coal industry is under assault from an administration that said they were going to bankrupt the coal industry. We need to make sure, look, when this administration came into office, 48% of our national energy supply came from coal. Today, 32% of it comes from coal. Coal's under assault. We need to make sure that we keep those mines open. It is regulatory nightmares. I've been down in the mines. I've met with the coal miners. I've met with folks who work for the coal companies. Everyone says, yeah, natural gas prices are unfortunate right now, but 12 months from now, 24 months from now, when natural gas prices go back up, what are we going to do when we don't have coal? Because that's the situation we're in right now.
Well, coal is under assault partially because of the concerns over global warming.
Right. And you know, I mean, if you look at some of the regulations that came into effect in the 90s, they had a negative impact on the coal industry as well. But we're in this weird situation right now where we don't utilize some of our coal resources because of environmental concerns. Even though we would burn that coal far more friendly, far more environmentally safe than anywhere else in the world, but we still take some of the coal and we export it to places like China, who then burns it in a very environmentally unfriendly way. And we all know how the world works. It goes up in the atmosphere, and pretty soon we're breathing that same air anyway. So we need to make sure that we're utilizing these resources. We talked about, obviously, it would bring down our energy costs. Obviously, it would put people back to work. Everyone I run into, they say, we need to lower our dependence on foreign resources. Well, right here in Southern Illinois, and other parts of the nation, but especially in Southern Illinois, we're blessed with an opportunity to greatly decrease our dependence on foreign energy resources by utilizing the resources we have, coal. You know, in Southern Illinois, we look at what's happening in Pennsylvania and Ohio and the Dakotas with the oil and gas fields, for example. We have the same geological makeup in Southern Illinois as some of these places. We have proven reserves in Southern Illinois, but we're not being able to utilize those reserves either. Some of that's state policy, but some of that's federal policy as well. And we need to make sure we elect people who not just work across the aisle, but also work up and down the ballot. Make sure that we work with state legislators and local legislators to utilize as many of those energy resources we have. That's how we turn around the economy of Southern Illinois.
Before I take the next phone call, I just want to back up a little bit. I'm not sure the answer to the question concerning Grover Norquist. Would you sign his pledge?
I need to read the pledge, but if it's a net decrease of taxes, I would be supportive of that. I mean,
It's basically would not sign any tax increase legislation.
And see, I think what it says is you wouldn't support a net tax increase. So, for example, like under my jobs plan here that I proposed, if you bring down rates, but you eliminate loopholes and deductions, that some people could view eliminating loopholes and deductions as a tax increase. But as long as you bring down rates so there's no net increase, I think that would be okay as well. So, you know, as long as there's no net increase, I would be supportive of it.
Right. Let's back to the phones. And Christina in Madison County, go ahead. You're on the air with Jason Plummer.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. It's a great time to ask a question. When Mr. Plummer refers to, and many of the Republicans refer to tax loopholes and eliminating deductions, specifically, do you mean mortgage interest? And the second part of my question, which is not fiscal, it is social. Do you support the Civil Union Act that Governor Quinn signed? As my partner and I now have medical benefits because we were able to have a civil union, and being county employees, now I have benefits. So do you support that, or do you support the repeal of that?
Well, I mean, I think that that's generally a state issue, the repeal of it. You know, the only thing at a federal level I'm aware of is, of course, you know, I do not support gay marriage. I'm kind of a traditional values type of person. Her initial question, though, in terms of the mortgage tax deduction, you know, that's one of the few that I've said that would not be on the table for cuts. You know, when you look at our tax code right now, we have a tax code that's more than 72,000 pages, right? We have a U.S. Constitution that's less than 10 pages. So the foundation of our government, less than 10 pages, our tax code, 72,000 pages, and growing. And it's not growing because it's getting better. It's growing because connected individuals, connected businesses, so on and so forth, have the ability to put in all these loopholes and deductions people can take advantage of. When people say, well, specifically, which one are you talking about? There's thousands of them, literally thousands of them. And we've done a study, and we've said that we support the elimination of over 98% of them. I mean, there are some things that don't make sense eliminating as far as I'm concerned, but we have to go in there. We need to simplify the tax code. We need to make sure that people aren't taking advantage of these things. I mean, General Electric made more than $10 billion profit last year. Paid nothing in taxes. Why? Well, because their tax department's larger than most small businesses. It's staffed full of former IRS employees that are experts in the field, and they're able to take advantage of all these built-in things that nobody else can take advantage of. Illinois is a perfect example of what could happen at the federal level. I mean, you have a governor that ran for office wanting to raise taxes. We said, don't raise taxes. You're going to cost us jobs. You're going to cost us businesses. He raised taxes. We immediately see jobs and businesses flee. And then some very marquee names like the Chicago Mercantile Exchange and Sears said, hey, we can't compete with these tax rates. We're bailing. And they offered them a bailout. They take care of their tax increase. Who funds that? People like me, citizens and small businesses around Southern Illinois and Central Illinois pay for the bailout of those companies. As soon as Governor Quinn gave Sears a $132 million bailout, what did he do? He shut the Kmart in Fairview Heights. He shut the Sears in Alton, cost us jobs in Southern Illinois. Governor Quinn and his backwards fiscal policy is harmful to the state of Illinois, and I'm very frightened because at the federal level we see them going the same exact direction. Raise taxes on everybody, but when the marquee names come to us, we'll take care of them. We'll bail them out. And that's not what it's about. Government shouldn't be picking winners or losers. They shouldn't be picking favorites. They should be creating an environment where everybody can compete on an even playing field. That's what we need. Fortunately, it's not what we have.
Jason Plummer, I want to thank you so much for being with us. Our time is up, but it's been a pleasure meeting you.
Hey, appreciate it very much.
Wish you good luck on November 6th, and we'll be talking, I hope, with your other opponent, Bill Enyart. He has been invited to appear on this program, but so far he's not responded to that. So,
well, we see a lot of that these days. We get in front of as many voters as we can. I appreciate the opportunity, Don.
Okay, thank you, Jason Plummer. When we come back, we'll be talking with Missouri Congressman Todd Akin. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
President Barack Obama and Republican nominee Mitt Romney have faced off in 2 debates. Their final matchup comes just 2 weeks before Election Day, and the last undecided voters are making up their minds. Some of those voters